Hayden, Locke, President and CEO of Marimaca Copper. We're developing the Marimaca project in northern Chile, and we've just appointed Ausenco to lead our permit development and our definitive feasibility study.
Okay, well done for getting to this phase. Exciting stuff. So DFS, Ausenco, obviously great reputation. You've brought them on board. What have you asked them to do precisely? What's this DFS involved for you?
Yeah, we ran a pretty competitive process. We went out to a lot of groups. We have worked historically with Ausenco and they've impressed us. But as part of our process, we wanted to go out and see who else might be interested to partner with us. We're actually pleasantly surprised, but Ausenco did make an exceptional bid. And I think one of the things we really like about them is they've just come off a recent major copper mine construction. So a really good partner for us. They're currently building and about to commission the Monteverde project, which is owned by Capstone. So really an exceptional partner. The definitive feasibility study is about bringing together all of the disparate parts of this project, all of the aspects of that project, metallurgical, the updated resource, the new mining figures, and creating that plan and the capital and operational cost estimates to get us to a construction decision and then eventually into production. So it is a very important piece of work. It's where the really detailed technical engineering work comes to the fore, and at the end of it, we'll have a very good idea of what this will actually cost us to build it, given the new scale and the new size of the project we're looking at.
Right. Okay. Well, I wouldn't mind getting into detail here because, like most sort of economic studies at the moment, seem to be terrifying companies and then subsequently terrifying the marketplace. This is something that you have to put together to persuade bankers, like I used to be, to say they've nailed down the cost. The inflationary environment is not as terrifying as we once thought it was. Costs have come back down to more reasonable amounts, and the margins will be there for this company. So what are the areas that is going to be particularly important for them to focus on? What are the big ticket components which you're trying to get a grasp of?
Well, the most obvious one is capital cost and then operating cost, because that drives obviously the cost of us getting into production and the amount that we need to borrow and raise from equity investors to get into production. And then the operating cost is the driver of how much we can borrow from the banks and, what our leverage capacity is, how much of a safe investment will be. But it also is the overarching driver of what our returns will be for our equity holders. So those are the two most obvious important parts. But really, in order to underpin the assumptions that go into, because it is assumptions until you're actually in operations, you need to have a very rigorous analysis of all the technical aspects of the project and how they all interlink, so that the banks can have confidence that the numbers we're presenting are actually what's going to occur in reality. And then I think the final piece of it is how robust is this project? We think it's very robust, i.e. how much can it weather the storms, the external influences on our business on a day-to-day basis. We think Marimaca is exceptional, but this document will really go a long way into proving that it is an exceptional project from that perspective and therefore very financeable.
Right. Okay. And it's that financing that's kind of interesting. Some companies come in and go, 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, right? What are the things that the debt provider, because that's the kind of non-dilutive component that most investors that we've kind of honed in on, what are the aspects of your business which would be most attractive to the debt providers?
Well, so firstly, it's relatively low capital intensity, which means overall we have to borrow less money. We have decent, so I'm talking top of the first quartile, bottom of the second quartile, all in sustaining operating costs, which is obviously very important in terms of underpinning the interest payments and principal repayments for our debt. So those will be the most obvious areas, but they'll focus right in on what have we assumed for mining costs? What are we assuming in terms of the assumptions that go into designing our mine? What are we assuming as our recoveries? The areas that mines typically trip up is when you go to mine a resource, it's not there, and or when you go to try and recover the material that you want, it's more difficult than you expected to get out of the host rock. So they'll be focused on those two things. And really, when it comes to the amount that they're willing to lever, they look at reserve life. So how much are you borrowing and how much tail is there in terms of the reserve if things go wrong, which they often do. They'll have coverage ratios, i.e. how much money do you produce on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis, relative to what you're expected to pay in interest and in principal. And there's various different ratios that they'll be focused on. My feeling with this project, having been through this process several times on different mining projects, is this is a very robust and defendable project and is likely to have a high amount of interest from debt providers.
Okay. And obviously to kind of aid that process, you've actually just made a new hire. Now, he sounds Italian, but I suspect he's not because he's spent a lot of time in Chile. So tell us about this new arrival.
Yeah, Giancarlo Bruno is Italian heritage. Parents are Italian, I believe, but was born in Chile. He's a Chilean national. He is an exceptionally experienced operator and builder of copper mines in Chile. He recently retired from his role with Capstone Copper, having previously been the CEO of Mantos Copper, which is a key part of that combination that occurred, which has created the new Capstone. Mantos Copper was a remarkable success. It was they acquired the assets that formed the Anglo Norte operating unit from Anglo American in about 2015, and have subsequently turned it from a $300 or $400 million acquisition to a multi-billion-dollar company. So remarkably successful, and Giancarlo was the CEO of that business before it merged with Capstone. He's worked in Chilean copper for 35 years in some of the biggest mines in Chile. Most recently, he was the operating unit vice president for the Anglo Norte business unit with Anglo American, and prior to that with Collahuasi. So he knows Chilean copper. He doesn't want to be an executive. He's pretty adamant about that, but he feels like he's still got quite a lot to give to the Chilean copper sector, and he's very passionate about it. And so we're very fortunate to have him on board at what is quite an important time for us.
Yeah, like I guess navigating the kind of the political, and by that I'm really kind of pointing at the Chilean Ministry for Mines is going to be really important to you. Chile obviously it has been historically and currently is a epicenter for copper globally, but we've come off the back of new constitutions. We've come off the back of some of the gold miners struggling to actually get projects looked at, let alone approved. So what would his role be specifically, or what's he going to really bring to the table for you guys over and above the kind of engineering and company building component?
Yeah, he's obviously far more than just an engineer. He was the CEO of Mantos Copper, which meant that he had a far more strategic role. He was involved in the financing. He was involved in the environmental and permitting aspects. He was involved in the strategy generation. And then clearly he played a key role in the appointment of Ausenco as the EPC contractor for Monteverde, and then overseeing that contract. So there are just an enormous number of things that he can help us with. I think the key areas that I see a focus for us is, one, he's been through this process of transitioning to a construction and then operation recently in Chile. He has a huge network of Chilean operators, and he's a known figure amongst the Chilean mining fraternity, and that's only going to be more useful as we get into this permitting phase, which is all important for us.
Right, and I guess the other thing the companies are struggling to do is actually get into production. So if I'm looking at the market at the moment, obviously copper's come off a little bit on news of a little bit of surplus in the market at the moment. I think expectation is that in the new year it gets back to that $4 amount. How do you manage the kind of the process of advancing the project during phases like this? And obviously, as one of the, I guess you probably argue, kind of one of the next cabs off the rank in terms of new copper production as well. Have you got the money to kind of get you through this phase?
Yeah, absolutely. We're fully financed for everything that we need to do for the next 18 months. So that includes submitting our permits, starting to build out our owners team, and finishing our definitive feasibility study. That's the benefit of having Mitsubishi Corp as our new strategic partner. Mitsubishi has the ability to invest more money to go to nearly 10%, and we'll be having a lot of discussions with them about their strategy. And one of the things we'll be saying to them is, we don't want to slow down, and at the end of 2024, we will be wanting to, once we finish the definitive feasibility study, go straight into detailed design and engineering, getting ourselves prepared for final investment decision to kick off building this project. So from our perspective, we're very fortunate that we've got the money. It means we can crack on and continue to do the things that we need to do to march this forward. The short term, as you called it, surplus, I call it speculators' fear that there may be a slight hiccup in demand, which, to be fair, I'm yet to see. The data out of China shows that in Q3, it was a record quarter for copper imports to China. So we're not seeing that come through yet. It may still occur, but we're not seeing it come through yet. So from our perspective, the timing couldn't be better, as you say, to be the next cab off the rank. There are very few new projects that will be built in the next 5 years, and we expect to be one of those projects. And really, the timing couldn't be better because we are incredibly bullish on the copper price in that time frame.
Right, and the one thing you did mention in there was that the permitting, right? So you got to so have you submitted it yet, or when will you be submitting it, and how long does that usually take?
So the appointment of Ausenco is for both the permit engineering and the definitive feasibility study, and they're slightly different in terms of what is required. So we are targeting submitting our permit application in the middle of next year, and we will be submitting under a DIA, which is the less onerous of the two permitting regimes. As a general rule, it takes less than 12 months. We are assuming that it will take us 12 months in order to get our approval from the authorities. There is a slight risk that we move into the longer time frame, which is about a 2-year process. So we would, in the worst case, expect to lose another year on top of that. That means that we would be targeting, assuming that we can get the finance together, to be in production, commencing construction sometime between the middle of 2025 and the middle of 2026, and we would be producing sometime towards the end of 2026 or 2027.
Right, okay. And you'd say there is a delay there. I mean, what does one do? One doesn't sort of, tread water. What are the options available to you? And I guess that might involve actual access to capital to do something.
Yeah, the delay, if there is any sort of a delay, there's plenty of things that we can be doing. We will finish the definitive feasibility study and then go into our basic engineering still. There's no reason to delay any of those sorts of things. Part of the reason our strategy is to get the permit application in as soon as possible, rather than doing it after we've done our definitive feasibility study, is so that we can run various work streams in parallel and not lose any time, or lose as little possible time as we can during the transition to producer. So there is a lot of work that can be done. As far as we know now, Mitsubishi is a very supportive partner of ours and is willing to continue to invest in the project. We have a lot of groups that are wanting to be a part of our development story. So I don't think capital will be the issue. I think more than anything, we just want to deliver as quickly as we can as a company.
Okay, well, look, I appreciate the update. We will stay in touch with you as things evolve, and appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks.